Hello everyone. In today's video you will learn the shocking story of Solera Winter, a woman who died for 8 minutes and came back with forbidden revelations about our true spiritual origin and an invisible force that has manipulated humanity for millennia. What she saw on the other side will leave you speechless. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss anything. And comment below which city you're watching. My name is Solera Winter. Before all this, my life was predictable, even monotonous. Librarian in Durango, Colorado, single, introverted, lover of black tea, rare books, and long silences. I never imagined that one day I would be telling something so unbelievable. But I'm not here to make it up. I don't want fame, followers, or convincing anyone. I just need to count. Because what I experienced was not a dream, a fantasy, or delusion. It was real, so real that everything I knew before seems pale, artificial. I was never into religion. I grew up in an agnostic family, with a father who said that nothing comes after death, and a mother who believed in energies, but not in God. I agreed, until the day I died. For a long time I was reluctant to speak, and when I tried, I lost friends. I received pitying looks, cruel comments. There was a day when my own sister hung up the phone when I mentioned what I'm going to report here. But something inside me wouldn't let me shut up. As if a fire had been lit. As if something, or someone, was pushing me saying, "You saw. Now speak." So that's what I'll do. From the beginning. Even if my voice shakes. Even if you think I've gone crazy. Because if at least one person hears it and remembers it, it will have been worth it. What happened to me changed every cell in my body. It made me understand who I really am, who we are. There is something hidden from all of us. And the place I was, the presence I encountered, showed me the truth that was missing. About life, about death, about the light we were made to carry. And it all started on that ordinary morning driving to work. It was an ordinary Tuesday, one of those mornings where everything seems to go on autopilot. I woke up at 6:20, had my coffee with almond milk and added a little cinnamon as usual, even though I didn't really taste it. I put on my beige sweater, grabbed my car keys, and left the house with an audiobook playing on my phone. Something about ancient civilizations and their spiritual connections. I didn't pay much attention to the words until one sentence stood out as if it had been designed directly for me. The spiritual truth of ancient people was buried beneath layers of fear and control. It was at that moment that I felt the first pang in my chest. A strange, sharp pain as if something invisible was pulling me inside. I thought it was anxiety, or maybe something muscular, but it grew, tearing the center of my chest violently. I tried to take a deep breath. I looked in the rearview mirror, then at the road, and that's when everything got out of control. The car coming from the opposite direction did not have time to swerve. Neither do I. I remember the dry sound of the tires screeching on the asphalt, the impact that made my body fly forward even with my belt on, and the glass, shattering into 1,000 fragments as if time had slowed down. Each piece of glass seemed suspended in the air, reflecting the morning light like crystals from a falling candlestick. Then, silence. A type of silence unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was not the absence of sound. It was a total suspension of reality. Time didn't pass. The pain disappeared. The car, the road, the world disappeared. And then, with total clarity, I realized I was no longer inside my body. It was hovering above the scene, floating. I saw my car destroyed against a tree and my own body inert, with my head tilted to the side and blood running down my face. But I didn't feel scared, no anguish, just a strange, deep peace, as if this were my true nature, and everything I had experienced before was just a role. The feeling of being outside my body was so natural that, for a few moments, I didn't even question it. I floated a few meters above the scene, as if my eyes were made of light and everything was magnified in sharpness and detail. I saw the leaves swaying gently, the steam that rose from the car engine, the blood that dripped from my forehead with almost surgical precision. Time seemed suspended, but consciousness was alive, awake in a way I had never experienced in life. I watched the first cars stop. People came down, terrified, screaming for help. A woman in a blue coat knelt beside me, trying to check my pulse. A man ran to the phone, shaking, saying, "She's not breathing. We need an ambulance now." It was like watching a documentary about my own death. But there was no panic inside me. On the contrary, there was a soft, serene acceptance, as if everything was happening exactly as it should. My gaze, or what made me perceive it, was then attracted by something new. A light. It was not an ordinary light, like that of a lighthouse or the sun. It was alive, pulsating, as if it had its own conscience. It appeared on my left, growing slowly like a flame that turns into a hug. I felt his calling, not with words, but with something that resonated within my essence, as if to say, "He comes. Now is the time." I was effortlessly attracted, as if gravity ceased to exist, and my spirit slid towards that light with lightness. As I walked away from the scene of the accident, I took one last look at the body I was leaving behind. I didn't feel sorry, just a strange feeling of release, as if I'd taken off something too tight. A part of me knew, that's not me. No more. And then I got involved. I immersed myself in the light, and it welcomed me like a mother who finds her lost child. It wasn't a tunnel, as so many people describe it. It was something different, more like a veil of translucent energy that vibrated with colors I had never seen on Earth. Gold, yes, but also blue, violet, silver, and something that looked like color and sound at the same time. Light was not just visual, it was sensorial. I felt the light touching my consciousness, going through everything I was, as if cleansing me. It glided through this space with absolute lightness, without body, without weight, just presence. And the closer I got to the center of that light, the more a sense of belonging took over me. It was as if everything I had ever looked for, peace, meaning, love, was there, fused into a single vibration. The edges of what I called me began to expand. I started to understand everything. Not with the eyes, but with a kind of pure perception. I knew, for example, that there were presences around me. I didn't see faces, but I felt consciousness. Some watched me with tenderness, others seemed involved in tasks I didn't understand, but they were all in harmony with that dimension. The air, if you could call it that, was made of living light. When I breathed, or something similar to it, I felt the very essence of that reality filling me. It wasn't oxygen, it was love. A conscious love. The light passed through me, and with it forgotten memories returned. Memories of other existences, of promises made before I was born, of something very old that slept in me, and now awakened. Then I was taken even deeper, as if that reality was pulling me towards its heart. And in that heart, there was a presence that surpassed everything. It was grand but intimate. It was everything, but at the same time, it spoke to me as if only I existed at that moment. And I knew, without a doubt, I was about to meet the one who created me. There was no ground, no sky, no defined structure. But still, I was somewhere. An infinite field of living light, where every particle seemed to sing a silent melody. Colors flowed in the space like floating rivers, dancing around me with consciousness of their own. And the more I absorbed, the more I understood, but not with the mind, but with something deeper, as if my very being was remembering. In this field, everything was peace. Not the peace we know here, fragile and momentary, but an eternal peace, made of acceptance, love, and total belonging. I was no longer separated from anything. It was part of the whole. It was then that the presence revealed itself. It did not appear walking, nor with defined words or shapes. She simply era, engaging, immense, and at the same time totally intimate, a love so pure that it made me cry even without a body. His words didn't come out of a mouth. They appeared inside me like blocks of light that transformed into knowledge. "You were always a part of me," he said, "but not with a voice, that's for sure." Why did I forget? I thought, and before I even finished, the answer invaded me, because it was necessary to choose freely, to learn to remember. The presence was at the same time father, mother, source, home. I felt like she knew everything about me. Every thought, every mistake, every pain I hid from others. And yet I loved myself without reservation. A love that doesn't judge, that doesn't charge, that simply and. And at that moment I understood I was never alone, none of us are. The presence then began sharing visions, like living projections around me. They swirled like spheres of light, each containing a truth, a story, a forgotten secret. "You asked to remember," said the presence, "and I'll show you." And then I was immersed in these visions, and what I saw changed everything. The first vision enveloped me completely. It wasn't like watching a movie. Was experience every moment? I was in another time, in another body, in another world. An ancient civilization, bright, vibrant, connected. People walked barefoot on the earth, but their spirits floated in tune with the stars. There were temples built not with bricks, but with sounds and intentions. Wisdom flowed like a river among people. There, everyone knew that they were eternal souls, temporary travelers, parts of a living source. Then something changed. A dissonant energy emerged. She was not part of the balance, but rather a force that grew from separation, from envy, from the desire to control. I saw how this subtle shadow infiltrated the minds of leaders, like seeds thrown into the wind. And little by little, that splendid society fragmented. Castes emerged. Fear, the forgetfulness of divine origin, and over time, religions. Religions created not to remember, but to dominate, not to liberate, but to impose. And all of this was perpetuated for generations. I saw great councils exchanging truths for convenience, sacred writings being edited, distorted, hidden, enlightened figures being transformed into unattainable idols when in fact they had come to remind humans of their inner power. "They taught you to look outside for what was always inside," said the presence. They pointed to the sky when they should have shown the mirror. The vision has changed. Now I saw Earth from afar. A blue globe, covered in a vibrational network. Part of this network glowed gold, consciousnesses awakened. But most were shrouded in shadows, fear, guilt, ignorance, distraction. And then, I understood, the choices we make, the thoughts we cultivate, the intentions we set. All of this shapes our spiritual destiny. Nothing is neutral, nothing is forgotten, but everything can be cured. All. "You are not here just to remember," the presence said. "You are here to help others remember too." That's when I realized there was so much more to see. The next vision would take me to the battle that is still ongoing, and that we are all fighting without even knowing it. The change in the atmosphere was immediate. The light that previously enveloped me softly now became denser, as if the environment was preparing to show me something. More difficult to see, but necessary. I felt a deep grip, not of fear, but of gravity. The presence did not disappear, but remained a little distant, as if saying, "Now you need to see it with your own eyes." I was enveloped by a new vision. This time, the scenery was like an invisible battlefield. But there were no weapons, no uniformed armies. It was a war fought in the field of ideas, emotions, choices. Dark entities moved like smoke, whispering doubts, fear, guilt. I saw these entities feed on the dense energy that emerged when someone felt hatred, envy, or despair. They did not have bodies, but they had intention. And this intention was clear: to keep humanity blind, divided, and weak. I saw how they infiltrated systems, political, religious, cultural, encouraging wars, polarization, fanaticism, all with a single purpose: to prevent collective awakening. On the other hand, there were also beings of light, of quieter, more patient. They didn't force, they didn't invade, they just supported. They helped to remember, to heal, to reconnect. They were guided by absolute love, but acted only when called. I saw people in deep suffering receiving help from these beings, even without knowing it. A tap on the shoulder, a dream, a sign. They were always around but rarely noticed. This war is not between countries. It is within each heart, said the presence, now close again. And every choice, no matter how small, tips the scales. I then saw myself before the accident, apathetic, distracted, anesthetized by routines and responsibilities. A piece in the game without knowing there was a game. You chose to remember, the presence stated. And because of that, you will see more than others are ready to see. At that moment, I understood that my ordinary life was over. That returning to my body would not be just any new beginning, but the beginning of a mission that would face resistance, and that I would need courage, a lot of courage. The sensation was sudden, as if I had been ripped from a warm, safe place and thrown into a cold, dense, painful reality. The light disappeared. The sound of the heart monitor was the first thing I heard, followed by hurried voices and running footsteps. The smell of the hospital, that mixed odor of alcohol, plastic, and something metallic, invaded my senses. I was back. My eyes slowly opened. Everything was blurry, as if I was seeing through a layer of water. I saw blurred faces, a nurse, then a woman in a white coat with a shocked expression. She held a stethoscope in one hand and felt for my pulse with the other. On the other side of the bed, my sister Clara had tears in her eyes. When he saw me waking up, he put his hands over his mouth and fell to his knees, whispering, "My God, she's back." The pain was real. Every part of my body felt crushed, as if I had been put through a grinder. But none of that mattered, because inside me, something had changed. Definitively. I wasn't the same anymore. I later discovered that I was clinically dead for 8 minutes. The doctor responsible for my case, Dr. Elias Corbin, was the one who told me. He walked into the room the next day, looking at me, as if he were facing a miracle he didn't know how to explain. "You went into cardiopulmonary arrest. There was no heartbeat. We tried resuscitation for 5 minutes and nothing. And then, out of nowhere, you came back, with a regular heartbeat, as if something had turned you on again." I tried to tell him what I had seen, but he interrupted me with a gentle gesture. "Rest. There's no need to talk now." But I needed it. I needed to tell. The experience was not a detail of what happened. It was the unique thing that mattered. I didn't know how yet, but I was sure. I came back because there was something I needed to do. It wasn't just luck. It was a mission. Even with my sore muscles, even with my head heavy and my arms full of needles, there was a new fire lit inside me. And I knew it wouldn't go away anytime soon. In the first few days after discharge, I tried to keep silent. I thought no one would understand, or worse, that they would think I was crazy. But the urgency was rising inside me like a tide. With each hour that passed, I felt the need to talk, to record, to tell everything. I started writing by hand, then recording short videos on my cell phone. They were not to be published, just so as not to forget. But one afternoon, alone at home, I was overcome by an impulse that I couldn't contain. I posted one of the videos on a social network. In it, I spoke calmly. I told you about the light, about the presence, about the visions. He said that humanity was being kept blind, that there are forces that work to keep us disconnected from our true selves. I spoke sincerely. No exaggerations, without trying to convince anyone. At first, the response was silent, but in less than 2 days the video exploded. Thousands of views, split comments, people thanking us, saying they had felt something similar. Others calling me a charlatan, insane, a heretic. And then the problems came. A second video I posted mysteriously disappeared. The system said processing error, but the other videos I published before and after worked normally. My cell phone started to freeze. Files disappeared. Messages I sent to friends about the report did not arrive. Once, while recording a new video, the screen went black and a phrase appeared, "Be careful what you say." I thought it was a virus, but technicians found nothing. At night, metallic sounds invaded my room, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, I knew something or somebody I was trying to silence myself. The climax was when a man in a dark suit approached me at the exit of the market. I didn't say his name. He just smiled coldly and commented, "You are an intelligent person. You know that certain stories should only be told in small circles." I swallowed hard. He handed me a blank card. Nothing written, but when I touched it, a vibration ran through my arm. He walked away without saying anything else. For the first time, I was scared. But I also knew at that moment that I was on the right path. The following days were the most intense of my life. With every step I took toward truth, the world seemed to react, sometimes with beauty and recognition, other times with violence and censure. But the more people tried to silence me, the more I felt the call of the presence pulsing within me. I started receiving messages from strangers. Many wrote to me saying they had felt something similar. Lights, presences, lucid dreams, inexplicable memories. A woman from Arizona wrote to me saying that after hearing my story, she remembered a near-death experience she had at age 9 that had been completely erased from her memory. A 72-year-old man shared a vision he had when he was in a coma, where he saw the same vibrational network surrounding the earth. It was as if my voice was triggering forgotten memories in other people. As if what the presence had said, "You are here to help others remember," was finally coming true. Of course, threats have also increased. My address was disclosed anonymously. I received calls with distorted voices telling me to stop before it's too late. One night, all the lights in my house flickered at the same time for 2 minutes straight. No electrical explanation, no external breakdowns. Still, I didn't stop, because inside me there was something stronger than fear, a pure conviction. I knew what I saw, I knew who told me, and now I knew who am I. The presence showed me that the biggest lie they told humanity was that we are small, disconnected, unworthy. The truth is that we are living sparks from the source itself, and when we wake up to this, nothing can stop us. Neither do governments, not religions, no invisible shadows. This is not just my story, it's the story of all of VO. Us. I'm here to remind you, yes you, that your soul has a divine origin, that your pain has a purpose, and that the battle between light and shadow happens inside your heart every day. I died. I saw. I went back. And now, I won't be silent anymore. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.